To talk to you today about the Nnpa's digital network, as well as how you, as a publisher, can earn additional revenue through digital channels, which include social media, web banner advertising, and other kinds of promotions that you can do online. First, a little bit of background on the Nnpa's digital network. It's the largest, most influential Black-owned media resource in America. We deliver news, information, commentary to over 20 million people each week. Now, it used to be that number was just about print, but actually we've exceeded that number online. And increasingly, we're delivering many more readers online than we are in print. And in addition to that, these interactions take place across a wide network that operates in 38 states of the country, multiple cities, and increasingly abroad as well as our readers become more and more international. Our average weekly traffic per site across the network reflects a wide range of visitor and ad and page view metrics. But if we look at the aggregate, we're doing roughly 15 million, maybe a little bit more across the whole network, page views per day, which a multiple of that would lead to how many banner impressions we're able to deliver. And that goes from between sites that are small that are doing maybe 2,000 page views, all the way up to other ones that are doing millions of page views or hitting millions of visitors. And on average, we've got about 130 to 150 sites that make up the network. The metrics that we know we're driving from Black Press USA go to an average page views for a visitor of little over 3, which is really dramatic in that the industry average may be just 2 or just under 2. So we deliver consumers to advertisers using our unique ability to reach African Americans where they are. That means where they live, where they work, where they play and worship. And we're not just delivering things in silos, but we're able to integrate our messaging across print with events. Many of our publishers are doing things that are event related, direct response, and online solutions. The inventory comes in many different forms. And when we say inventory, we're talking about this is what the advertisers are buying. Okay? So that includes people who can work on their computers, on their phones, and their websites. We're able to deliver content through RSS feeds, blogs, instant messaging applications, social apps, email, and event marketing. So in addition to things like Nnpa.org and Black Press USA, which we refer to as Nnpa branded properties, advertisers benefit tremendously in being able to reach out to you as a publisher through one source. The network structure that we provide to them facilitates, on their side, national and regional as well as local ad buys. And often the same advertiser is looking for that kind of variety. They may want one buy to go nationally. They may want another one where they're focusing on the West Coast or on the East Coast, or they're picking certain markets that they're using tests for. So that's pretty effective. And additionally for them, we can do some things that include content sharing opportunities with third-party websites and content providers. In other words, often they may come to the table with a partner or another solutions provider, and we can certainly integrate with them. Some of the features, benefits, and services of the network: seamless integration and ease of use. Advertisers are able to buy a run of network. That means they come in and they say, hey, here's my banners. I want them to run from this point to this point. We negotiate a budget with them, or they can look at things that are a lot more specific, like a run of category package within the network. Categories may be defined as health. In other words, they only want their ads to appear on health-related articles. Creative is served from our ad service or directly from the advertiser servers using tags that they provide to us. And many of you have the experience of us providing tags to you that we're delivering the ads through. So in summary for the network, it's a first-tier advertising network. The network works with participating publishers to enable and offer run-of-site advertising across specific channels. We talked a little bit about that earlier. So you think of auto or travel maybe as an example of that. But in certain situations, we can also offer discounted pricing to marketers who are willing to relinquish control over their ads and how they'll run, and in those instances, we can include a site opt out. We have had advertisers who have asked us to remove certain sites from the buy. We've had advertisers who asked us to heavy up in other sites, and we refer to it as throttle, but basically slow down delivery to some sites. So the fact that we have the capability to do those things makes us increasingly more competitive. But it also says that we are focused on providing them a service that they're interested in buying. In other words, they don't want to waste money on markets they have no interest in reaching, and we can reach the markets that they want to reach pretty efficiently. The network also includes the capacity to deliver programmatic ad buying over a platform that enables the advertiser to actually not only decide on what kinds of structures they want the programmatic buy to fall within, but also includes the ability for them to determine what kind of device they want to reach programmatically and what kind of medium they want to reach. So mobile, a phone versus desktop, video only, social. And in addition, we actually have the capacity to be able to monetize native advertising. In other words, we can monetize the articles on your site and through our programmatic server, serve them up to other potential publishers on a per view basis. So one simple interface enables us to manage all of that on the back end of the ad server. And it also enables us to deliver real-time reporting and transparent visibility to the advertiser without delays. The Nnpa provides the support needed to ensure smooth integration based upon individual marketer needs and work with advertisers and agencies to establish parameters for programmatic buys. So we generally go in and negotiate what the buy structure is going to be. There's a premise in programmatic. It's called a deal ID, where in other words, your programmatic is a bidding channel. And basically what you're saying is, here's my inventory, here's all of the ad space that I have to offer. Very often we're talking about remnant space, space that's not being taken up by direct sales. And you can negotiate a fee for the advertiser to be able to access that space. But then after that, it's all done electronically. And it's all done pretty much at the advertiser's whim. They go in and select when they want to buy, how they want to buy, where they want to buy, etc. But the fact that we're able to do that and to do that in a way that's seamless has a lot of benefit to them. And if they're already using an existing ad server, frequently the advertiser is going to be using Google Ad Manager or OpenX or one of the other kinds of networks that are used by advertisers to be able to buy ads in bulk. We can integrate with those servers pretty seamlessly. We also provide rich media support, which means that we can do more than static banners. Actually, many of the banners that we've run in our campaigns have either been video or HTML5, which basically means that there's code that's driving a kind of like a miniature website that appears within the banner space. We can also do some things with email, mobile, and specific kinds of ad calls that are pulled up based on a trigger mechanism. In other words, a keyword, a region, some other kind of demographic like age, job description, depends on what kind of information we may have on the visitor. So we provide instant access to real-time reports that can be shared with the staff and decision makers. In other words, advertising comes in, we can actually give them access to our back-end ad server. And the features of all of that include video ad serving, geographic targeting, site zone targeting. That means target and serve ads to specific websites or zones. Zones within a website, in other words, home pages, secondary pages, or even things like negotiating with you as a publisher. We would have to go in up front to negotiate the ability to be involved in your email blasts and those kinds of things. Then there's a couple of other things that they get a little technical, but they're important to understand. Frequency capping, that means how many times will an individual user see an ad. Keyword targeting, it's pretty self-explanatory. The advertising comes in, they say, here are the 5 or 10 or 1 or 2 words that we want all of our ads to be associated with. In other words, if one of these ads appears in an in an article, we'd love our ads to be able to show up in an article. Start and end times, when the ads start, when they end, smart dashboard. They're able to come in and not only see the performance of the ad, but also control if it starts, if it stops. We can give them permission through our ad server to actually launch new campaigns. We just haven't done that, and I don't foresee that happening in the near future, but the capability is there. And as I said earlier, fast and accurate reports and all standard IAB. IAB is the Interactive Advertising Bureau. They're kind of like the governing agency, or one of the governing agencies, over a lot of things that happens online. So they've made some determinations about here are some of the standards that advertisers want to be able to deal with, as well as some of the standards that publishers want to be able to deal with. Now, I also wanted to include here some frequently asked questions that we get from advertisers, because I think it will help you as you're thinking about what you're doing with your websites. How many impressions are the sites offering? And we generally have to explain to them that our member sites offer digital advertisers tremendous flexibility to take advantage of impressions across entire sites within specific subject categories. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Within specific markets and within special supplements that are targeted at specific audiences based upon lifestyle or demographics. Now, obviously, some of that has to do with education. The more that we know about what you're doing, the easier it is for us to be able to build that into a negotiation. Today, we're generally doing pretty straightforward ad buys, but that doesn't preclude us from being able to negotiate some more complex buys. And we have done some pretty complex structured buys directly and run them across not only Black Press USA, but integrated the rest of the network as a result. So in aggregate, our publishers can support several million impressions to advertisers on a daily basis, depending on the placement preferences requested by an advertiser. Many of the publishers in major markets can guarantee hundreds of thousands of millions of impressions each week. And the only reason we have hundreds of thousands here is because we still have a pretty large gap between the well and high performing publishers and the publishers that are just coming on board and transitioning into digital. So one thing is that all of our sites can support standard banner sizes, and so that's what we kind of lead with. The full banner, leaderboard, square sizes, that's at full banner is the let's say 160 by 600 that you might see. A leaderboard is the banner at the top of the web page. That's 728 by 90. These are all sizes in pixels. And squares are usually the 350. Those are the three that are most commonly run. Other options, including rich media, video, and pre-roll, are limited to specific publisher sites. They require a different level of technology integration and service and being able to support the ads, even though we have been able to deliver video using the same kinds of platforms as our traditional banners. And we're looking to do, and rich media and some other things. But in terms of video, in this instance, we're talking about video pre-roll and some other kinds of things over the top. In other words, they want to be able to reach people on YouTube, on their mobile devices, on their television sets, and they want to be able to buy that inventory through us. Now, often what that means for us is that we would have to buy it through a third party, and because of that, that means that revenue is not coming in through our publishers. So for those reasons, we tend to stick with the traditional kinds of banner buys. What social media platforms are they including? How many posts are they offering? What is the length of the social media campaign? So social is a big deal, and increasingly is becoming a bigger deal for advertisers who want to understand how we can integrate their ad buy not only as display, which means display is what's referred to as just straight banner kinds of buys that run in a post or on a page or on a site, but also how we can integrate it into other places, which include social media, and sometimes even email blasts and other kinds of delivery of the messages. So what we've been doing pretty significantly is offering advertisers the ability to not only advertise using display and traditional means, but to also be able to integrate press releases, downloadable attachments, webinars, sponsored Facebook or YouTube live stream content. You see us doing a large number of live streams. That's part of what's driving all that, so that we can develop new content and have additional inventory to be able to offer up to publishers. Do all the Nnpa newspapers have their own websites? If not, how many and what is the daily average traffic to the sites? We touched on this a little bit earlier, but often the answers that we give to them to this question, they already know. There are many different services that you can subscribe to that will give an estimation of a website's traffic. Sometimes they're pretty on, sometimes they're horribly wrong. But what we want to be able to do is to be able to give a more accurate assessment whenever possible. So we know that, especially after the advent of COVID and many more publishers moving online to digital, the majority of our publishers are maintaining websites where they provide access to news, community events, and other information of importance to their readership. So we not only are trying to go in and buy media through the publishers, but we're also, as I said, the live streams will be an example, trying to develop other kinds of content that will enrich your site, drive more traffic to the site, and enable you to be able to channel that into additional dollars. Since many factors contribute to visitation across that many websites, one of the things we try to stress with advertisers is we're news publishers. And often our visitation will change depending on the news cycle. So that's a very important thing, and it's a key negotiation factor. And now so that's kind of an overview, but really I think this is the meat of what you wanted to maybe hear about, is how can I grow in digital? Well, first, we want to take a step back, and I want to try to see if I can convey that all things that happen in digital are business-based. Digital is not an island that operates on its own. It's all based on business philosophies and other kinds of things that are driven through business mechanisms. Digital hasn't been around for hundreds of years. So that means that most of what's been developed for it has been developed by people whose expertise has come from other places, including digital. Now, all of that has had a huge impact on the rest of society. And now we're no longer in a society where people operate individually or go on their own and make decisions, even though we believe we do. But really what you want to do is you want to think of our current society as a network economy. In a network economy, the value is created and shared by all members of a network rather than by individual companies. Economies of scale stem from the size of the network, not the individual enterprise. So think of it this way. The members of the network drive value, which leads to more members, which leads to more value. We're able to leverage the value of our combined membership when we speak with advertisers. And then we're able to differentiate ourselves from other people that are talking to them. There are other networks that may be more sophisticated or may be able to offer them other kinds of services at a higher level of detail. But we are unique in that there's no other network that looks like us. There might be other individual publishers, but as the previous slide talked about, their advertisers are looking to be able to make one decision across a broad range of platforms and assets, right, and be able to get some benefit through that. So here's another example that I put in just to provide some context. Back in 1990, a tiny fraction of the world's population was using a cell phone. If you're watching this from home and you just think about how many cell phones are in your house compared to, how many phones you might have had in the home back then. But by 2010, roughly 20 years later, and 20 years matters because 20 years is the time frame that's associated from a marketing standpoint with internalization of a specific technology or system. So 20 years later, those numbers had jumped to 4 billion people, or a whopping 67% of the world's population subscribing to mobile services, and close to 2 billion or 26.6% of the world's population using the internet. Now, why does that matter? Because the cell phone is a network. All cell phone users are members of the same network. And the more users there are, the more value there is in being able to have and operate a cell phone. Okay? The other thing that's important here is that this 4 billion number, Facebook alone has that many users today. The number of prospects and customers is finite. In other words, there's a finite number of people who are going to buy our services for whatever reason, right? And even though the marketplace may be expanding, in other words, these people may be buying more or maybe buying more efficiently, this number about African American spending being at the $1 or $2 trillion mark may be accurate, and it may indicate that the marketplace is expanding. But the second part of this sentence is what also is true, that marketplace for an individual seller who's trying to get into it may be shrinking because efficiencies are allowing more and more competitors to come into the fray. So we also have to look at this a little differently from an operation standpoint. You as a publisher have operated a certain way, especially our longer term publishers, for a long time. In other words, print sales follow a certain kind of protocol. And digital sales may borrow some of that protocol, but then other aspects of it completely different. But the buyers who understand the print protocol are aging and they're retiring or they're moving on to other kinds of jobs. And the people who are coming in, they're a different kind of breed, right? They're focused on tech, cost, influence, not relationships. So we have to do a more powerful job of pushing the positive side of what we're doing. Often because they're going to be skeptical. They may say, well, the internet's our friend, but you never know for sure whether it's accurate. They used to manage everything from review to selection. I'm no longer directly involved, and we're seeing that happen more and more. That these buying decisions, like programmatic, for example, are not even being made at the human level. Okay, often they're being automated. So when we go into these markets, we go in with that understanding, and often, yes, we can talk about the people and we can talk about the age and we can talk about the significance and we can talk about the uniqueness. But when we talk digital, we often have to talk about the math because it often comes down to numbers. So you've heard me use the word impression a lot of times when we're talking, as I've been talking through this presentation. An impression is an estimate of the number of people in a particular advertisement is reaching and may be counted in different ways depending upon the way the ad is situated on the page, as well as the number of times the web page where the ad appears is shown. A minimum number of impressions, 3 to 7, are required before the message registers in the mind of the viewer. Now, why does that matter? That matters because it helps to understand the science of why advertisers spend in order to basically capitalize on that science as a seller of advertising. The minimum number climbs based upon the total number of impressions left by all participants in the category. In other words, if I sell shoes and I'm the only one in my whole city selling shoes, then I don't have to leave as many impressions to be able to convert somebody to come in and buy me shoes. I'm the only game in town. However, if 200 people are selling shoes in the same block as me, then my challenges are a lot different. We call the collective universe of impressions, like all of these people trying to get somebody to buy something, clutter, or the voice of the marketplace. So our contribution to that clutter, and the clutter is not necessarily a negative thing, is called our share of voice. Now, you might have heard share of voice being used in a different term, but share of voice in this instance means if I was in a room all by myself and somebody else came in, the two of us could have a normal conversation in normal tones. However, as the room became crowded, more and more crowded, we would eventually need to have we would start yelling or screaming, and then eventually we need to have a microphone to be heard. So the share of voice has to be equal to or above that maintained by our competitors. Now, this is true for the advertiser, but it's also true for you as a publisher. Part of the reason that you may find challenges with sales is because everyone is coming into the advertiser with the same pitch. And some of them may be better able to deliver on what the advertiser is looking for. So understanding that you're not just offering a service, but you're competing as a marketer. And that is true with digital. You have to basically think of yourself as a marketer who's selling content or access to your content and shape that content and that access in a way that's going to be appealing to your target customer. And again, it's all about the math, because it also is not something that you should do blindly. Digital sales and the revenue that you want to generate from them need to be defined. You need to have some numbers in your mind, because those numbers are going to enable you to determine how much you're going to be willing to investment spend to be able to convert those audiences. Now, there's a difference between maintaining a website and just having a web presence in case people want to come in and read something. There's a difference between that and expecting your website to be able to deliver a profit for what you've invested in it. So revenue is not realized until it's earned. In other words, you've got to be able to grow your sales funnel and earn the revenue so you can count it, right? And your actual required sales, in other words, since the advertiser is coming in and spending with you, but they're not giving you the whole year's worth of spending in one check. Often it's a monthly situation. So you've got monthly expenses and other kinds of things if you're a business owner. And I realize this may sound like it's a departure from digital, but it isn't. It's consistent with that, because your ability to offer these services comes with a cost. And understanding what that cost is gives you the ability to target how many sales I've got to cover over what period of time on what average amount of time. And to task your salespeople or sales staff, or to look at other kinds of solutions to help to fill that number. So there's some conversions here, and I'd be happy to shoot you this deck so you can take a closer look at them. Just send me an email, normanrich@nnpa.org. But essentially the goal of this slide is to talk about the fact that there's a science behind digital. It's not just a question of putting the banners there. So reductions or increases in any of those formulas that were on the previous slide, they affect your ability to be able to grow and be profitable. Your sales objectives, you've got to define what the number is that you're trying to reach. You can't just hope and pray that you're going to get there. Your conversion rates at both the interest and conversion tiers. What that really means is that you may have some people that are coming in and they're just looking and clicking and clicking and clicking, right? Now, you've got two things here. You've got one, the advertiser is looking to convert. They're looking to see how many people actually come into my store because I put banners on your website, right? And then secondarily, you're trying to determine how many new markets or advertisers or readers or visitors, whatever your target is, you can reach through the investments that you're making in digital. So some of that is also defining a minimum and average sale amount, understanding what your sales cycle duration is. You need to understand and know if it's taking you 3 months to close a deal on average, so that you can plan accordingly. The percentage of waste inherent in the media channel, in other words, this is more for you as a marketer than as a publisher, because you've got to kind of practice what you preach. You've got to do some kinds of advertising or promotion. And what that means, percentage of waste, just means you're going to talk to some people who will never buy what you're selling. And if you're spending all of your time talking to people who will never buy what you're selling, that turns out to be pretty ineffective. Message frequency, how often are you reaching these people with the same message? Remember the earlier slide, the 3 to 7 times before they show any interest? And then how many people are competing in the marketplace? And what's your share of voice? All these things directly impact the formulas that determine the minimum number of impressions that are required, both for the advertiser but also for you as a marketer. So that comes down to a few things. When you look at your person who's buying, part of the reason that it's difficult sometimes to break through is the thing that we call the loyalty loop. You have active and passive loyalty. Active loyalty means I'm over here, I'm buying with these people, they're doing a great job, I'm not really interested in looking anywhere else. Passive loyalty means somebody could be doing a great job, but I'm still looking. I'm willing to look around and try somebody else, right? Now, these things are real and they exist. The one thing about digital is because of the removal of human contact, it becomes much easier for people who operate in either of those loops, right? to just be able to continue operating in that loop. So what you want to be able to do is to develop enough media channels to move aggressively beyond just a purely push style communication. We call push print. It means I open up the paper, it's pushed on me, I see whatever when I open up the page, I see it, I can't help it. Whereas the web is called pull. Because if I don't want to go there, I won't. It takes a little bit of a higher degree of motivation on the part of the person who's trying to get me there for me to be able to convert. So we know that 2/3 of the touch points during the active evaluation phase involve purchaser-driven marketing activities, not publishers-driven marketing messaging. In other words, I'm thinking about what I want to buy. I've already done some research. That's what this active evaluation phase means. I've done some research. I've narrowed it down. Here are the few people I'm going to talk to about buying. Versus you're sending me your media kit, your salesperson is calling me over the phone. That may have some impact, but generally not until I'm prepared to buy or until I'm satisfied that this might be a good decision. So things that helped with that are internet reviews, word-of-mouth recommendations from associates and coworkers, as well as direct interactions with knowledgeable sales staff and recollections of past experiences. In other words, I come in, I have a good experience with you, I'm more inclined to have another good experience with you. That's why sometimes it's good to be able to package up your digital offering and have some kind of a trial or some kind of an early entry fee or some kind of a reduced price for them to get on board, especially if it's a new customer. In other words, you're thinking about selling a product or a service. You're not just thinking about ones and zeros. 1/3 of those touch points involve company-driven marketing. So if you're not doing any marketing, you're going to fail. There's no way that you can compete against a powerhouse who's trying to take your business away, right? If you're not out there trying to fight against them and market. Traditional marketing remains important, but the change in the way purchases make decisions means that publishers must also evolve. Now, we've got some things here because what we find is that many publishers are leaving money on the table. So maybe this gets to the heart of what we wanted to really talk about. We send over, on average, 3 banners, 3 different banner sizes each time. But often when we go to the publishers, to your sites, we only see one. So let's say that banner was paying a $9 CPM. On this page, if you ran 3 different banners, you'd be able to drive revenue beyond the $9 because each one of those banners is paying a $9 CPM. Additionally, we see that often publishers are placing all of their ads below the fold. Below the fold means at the bottom of the page where nobody's going to go. Now, you need to understand that advertisers do not want to pay for ads that are never seen. And the fact that digital is electronic, those tags enable them to know that their ad was, we call it, viewed. It was not viewable, right? And frequently we're in the place of having to negotiate around that because the insertion orders and other things that the Nnpa has to sign, basically the advertiser is protecting themselves against delivering a lot of dollars for impressions that no one has ever seen. So you have to consider that as well. How much of your inventory you're placing above the fold, how much of your inventory you're actually capitalizing on. When you have an actual ad buy, you want to be able to maximize the benefits of that buy. And then you also want to think about how does this all break down. So we look, you put one banner above the fold, it's $10. If you put 2 banner ads in there, which kind of touches on what I was talking about earlier, that immediately doubles the number. If you put 2 banner ads below the fold as well, that could be $40 if you have content that's compelling enough for people to scroll down. So now that $7 or $9 CPM that I understand that several publishers may not be happy with becomes really a $40 negotiated CPM if you take advantage of it. If you think about the page itself as it's almost like a supermarket in that how supermarkets have those aisles that you walk down. Well, those things in the aisles are not just there for dress. They're there to expand the amount of floor space that is there in the supermarket, the amount of square footage that they can use to sell in. Your website is just like that. Okay? You've got some square footage. Really, we call it pixels per inch. In other words, your site costs you a certain amount to operate, and understanding how much of it is designed to be able to show content versus how much is designed to sell ads helps you to understand whether you're making money or losing money on it. It's not just we've got a website and I'm not making any money. It's we've got a website and I'm not doing what's required to be able to make money on the site. Additionally, there are other types of ads that you can run on your site. And these are just some examples of them. An expanding ad, right? Now, these we're including because all of these different types of delivery mechanisms can be charged at a higher premium. And I should also say before I go farther, the average CPM that an advertiser wants to pay is between $4 and $6, right? Really, they would love to be between $2 and $4, but on average, they're going to be $4 to $6. We tend to negotiate $6 would be the floor, and we try to get up as high as $12. So we're immediately going in at double the price for things that are not as sophisticated as what we're about to talk about. So expanding ads start at one size within a standard ad placement on a web page, then expands over the page content automatically when a user interacts. Then there's a thing that's called an interstitial. Many of you have experienced this. You go to a page and something pops up over the content. Now, there can be a lot of things that cause that trigger, but generally, advertisers are willing to pay for that at a premium if you can measure and deliver it consistently and you can meet some of their criteria in terms of how it's delivered. And the ad itself usually disappears after about 15 seconds if the user doesn't interact with it. Banner with a floating panel. This delivers a banner and an interstitial creative to one web page at the same time. You can open and close the interstitial creative from the banner creative, right? So you've seen that sometimes. The banner will have a little bit of a message. A window will pop up. The window might have a video, might have something else in it. It might even be like a small little store that you can actually buy some stuff from. And you can actually control that through the banner or through the pop-up. Tandem. These are two synchronized ads. We often refer to them as roadblocks or site takeovers. The units can talk to each other and synchronize their animations so they look like they're one working unit. Advertisers will certainly pay a premium for the ability to come in and do a takeover, which means maybe all of the banners on your homepage or maybe all of the banners on your whole site are their banners for a certain period of time. Or this roadblock situation where they control two prime key areas of real estate above the fold, and they negotiate that for a certain period of time. At push down, this starts as one size on top of the page, and then it expands and pushes the content down when the user interacts with it. You see less and less of this because this really is more on a desktop kind of device. You might see it every once in a while on a tablet, but on a phone or another kind of mobile device, this doesn't really have a tremendous amount of benefit. So you wouldn't see this as much today as you might have seen it in the past. But there are certainly certain advertisers that are willing to pay a premium for your ability to deliver this. And your ability to deliver this means that you can get creative about the offerings that you're making to an advertiser. We're going to touch a little bit on social media. I realize I might seem like I'm hopping around here, but we've got two big subjects that probably could have been a whole conference all by themselves. So we're just trying to cover over a few things. Publishers who are active on social platforms should provide all content posted to their websites to their social audience. And the truth of the matter is, you should do it to the website first. You shouldn't hold on to the content until you publish the paper, because you want to reach the people where they are, when they are there, and increasingly they are there with their mobile device no matter where they are. The mobile device enables them to be connected with the world from anywhere. So some of that includes social. By being able to publish to social platforms, you could also monetize that publishing. Social media campaigns generally supported by directing viewers to digital content hosted by the publisher or to a link provided by the advertiser. Post quantities and length of time supported are negotiated on an individual basis with advertisers. In other words, advertisers will pay you to be able to leverage your social media content or your social media platforms. But additionally, you can monetize those platforms from within those platforms. Facebook has an advertiser network. YouTube pays for people who pays based on views of people who are looking at your content. So with thousands of platforms available for social media and marketing, business objectives are easily lost in that technology. What you've got to do is align your business objectives, platform functionality, and user audience demographics. That's essential to your social media strategy success. Just often I hear publishers say to me, well, I brought this young person in to post to my social media, or I brought this young person in to manage my website. Now, there's nothing the matter with young people, right? But young people often don't understand the business mechanics behind how these things have to work. And so that means if you're going to have a younger person in there, the strategy and everything else that surrounds what they're doing, you have to be sure to define that. So what you want to do is think about your media strategy, your social media strategy, in three kind of big buckets: share, converse, in other words, communicate, it's a two-way street, and discover, right? And that's whether you are doing blogging or you might work a relationship out with some bloggers. In other words, what I'm saying here is you want to go, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can partner with people who are already active and have already been able to generate some followers, some people, many likes, right? They're on a bunch of different platforms, what they do all day. But what they don't have is your reach and what I talked about earlier, your earned trust with a certain marketplace and your ability to talk to advertisers. So frequently they are sitting there and they're wondering, how can I be able to drive more revenue? You can provide a solution for that. You want to be able to maintain at least 3 or 4 different social media channels going at the same time, because people are not all using one channel all the time. You want to be able to support regions, meaning going beyond where you are, right, with a minimum of 3 social media channels, and you want to be sure that your stuff is discoverable in SEO. Now, SEO means you've got to have some unique content. There's nothing wrong with subscribing to the Associated Press or any other kind of a news feed service. However, you should also understand that Google, from an SEO standpoint, they measure that. They measure how much of the content is original and how much of it appears in a whole bunch of other places. And that can go to your ranking and how people find you. And that ranking follows you everywhere you go. It's almost like a credit score. Okay, it can impact how your content is distributed on social channels, including Twitter and Facebook. It can certainly influence how your content is distributed from within Google as a search engine and other search engines. So, by and large, you want to find at least a percentage of your content you want to generate and use that content to create conversations with prospects and customers that generate awareness and word of mouth. And we say prospects and customers, we're not just talking about the advertisers, obviously, but the customers who are your readers and viewers, right? You want them talking about you and your content. So we talked a little bit. These are some tips, some things you can try and do to be able to do more with social media. Blogger relations. Develop a PR influencer program, proactively reaching influencer bloggers with your story, who are then picked up virally across the internet. In other words, you've got a story to tell, or they may have stories to tell. It's a give and take relationship. You can partner with them to be able to help to distribute their content, but you can certainly leverage them for interesting articles or other kinds of points of view pieces that you're writing about that they may want to be able to cover. Commenting on influential blogs. Encourage publishers, SMEs, those are subject matter experts, to post comments on influential blogs, helping to build relationships with bloggers and awareness for publishers. So you're going to go in. I know that a number of publishers run, for example, a lot of content about education. And you're kind of, in a way, hoarding that content because it's only available on in your print publications or on your websites. But the opportunity exists for you to be able to reach out to other people who are producing education content and to share your content, either by commenting on, being a guest appearing on, writing a featured article for, sharing content periodically, republishing their content, right? All of those things are helpful to you because you're leveraging what other people are already doing, and that's all beneficial. Utilize the latest tools, multimedia, social links, and tags to help press content to be found and used online. It is increasingly mechanical, the web. Very often, and we have this conversation often at Nnpa, where I'm explaining we're trying to work around the algorithms of these social media platforms that we do not control, the arbitrary rule sets that they may want to put in place. So you have to be aware of all those things, and you want to be able to use the latest kinds of tools, integrate as many of the links as possible, etc., so that your content can be part of the mix. And then SEO, optimize your press releases, white papers, etc., for search engine and online campaign integration. It's a little hard to optimize a news article for SEO, even though the headlines can be done. But certainly that's not the only kind of content that you produce. And you want to be aware of keywords and other kinds of elements that are searchable to make sure that they're included in the content. One tip that I would advise is you don't want to do the least when you're making a post. The way that WordPress works, you have an area there for categories and tags. Those tags can be used to enhance your SEO, as well as those categories if they're defined properly. So when you make a post and you only tag 2 things and you only put in a couple of categories, right? It may make it feel like it's faster, but it actually, in the long run, it's not doing you any good because the likelihood that that post is going to get picked up and seen by somebody who may be searching on a category that you're writing about, but that you didn't include in those areas, just increases dramatically, especially since there's so many other people that you're trying to compete against. So unless you provide high quality content and compelling experiences that people have become accustomed to, right? In other words, now that's part of the cost of entry, the value of your content can be lost. This is another thing I often hear publishers say: we are producing excellent content. We are producing excellent content. And you very well may be producing excellent content, but you're not producing excellent content in a vacuum. There are other people who are also producing excellent content. So it's not just the content, it's everything that surrounds the content. You might need to take a step back and look at the design of your website. You might need to take a step back and look at the usability of the site. You might want to bring in a focus group to go through the site and tell you what they like and what they don't like. Engaging, interactive, and content-rich experiences attract prospects, build loyalty, and spread the word about the quality of a site, the viewing experience, and the content itself. Now, you hear me talking about sites, you don't hear me talking about digital because of the point that I made earlier. When I say digital, I mean the banners and buying and advertising, because part of the point that I made earlier is a lot of that has become mechanical. And a lot of that is going to be driven by the quality of the product offering that you're making. So it's critical that you have an effective product to be able to sell to, that the person has something that they feel proud about being associated with. And part of the reason for that is, as I said earlier, the old way of buying is going away. Those people are retiring, they're going away. It leads to the emergence of new faces. Technology breeds new customers. Choice gives them a lot of power. The customer is never satisfied. They're like, I can't get them satisfied. I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with that. Even service stars like FedEx have people complaining all the time. Think about it. They're getting a package from across the country to you the next day. People are not satisfied. So you want to be able to define the competitive edge that distinguishes you from everybody else. And then you want to be able to leverage that to be able to reach more audiences. And I would also kind of warn against just blanketly doing things that are kind of mass marketing. In other words, you're sending out email blasts, every day you're sending out an email blast. However, there may not be anything distinguishing you in that blast, or enabling somebody else who sees that blast to say, hey, I want to be associated with this. You always want to have a balance between providing value to the person who's receiving the blast and leveraging it as an ad platform. I often receive many blasts from publishers in my inbox, and they're just a glorified ad collection, right? But when you ask people to sign up, you often say to them, register to receive the latest news or updates from, and you put your name in. And you're going to find that many people then be unregistered because they didn't register to receive a page full of ads. They registered to receive news from a source that they trust. So you want to be able to provide them service, but service with choice. Customers understand value. And you may start off with only a few that really appreciate it, but those few will tell other people. Service model customers want a choice when they want it and on the terms they want. That is a big difference, okay? You're going to find one of the things when we talk about digital buys, internally, I make the point that generally the advertiser already has a budget. They know what they want to spend. We're there to negotiate the terms. Sometimes we can negotiate the rates, but generally the large amount that they're spending has already been defined. They expect to share in savings, price breaks, other incentives. Customers are willing to pay more for full service. So what you can often do is package up the banners with other things. Like we package up banners with advertorial distribution. We package up banners with social media. Now we've been packaging up banners with sponsorships for the live streams that we've been doing. So you want to get creative in how you're offering things, but you also want to be able to say something like, these live streams, the sponsorship for these live streams would be XYZ thousands of dollars. However, if we can work something out, we can discount the live stream portion in exchange for you buying the whole bundle. They can appreciate that. But then afterwards, you've also got to be able to deliver and perform. So real-time organizations, now we're talking about you as a publisher, what your mindset's got to be, you got to put the customer in the driver's seat. Customers may not always be right, but basically the customer is the one who's sending over the checks to enable you to send the checks. Create a customer environment of information, assurance, and comfort. Digitally, you've got to be able to deliver metrics. Even if you can do all of the other things that I talked about, you're competing with other providers who can deliver metrics all the way down to how many hours, how many minutes, this is how many dollars, this is how many people who came to our site went and then bought your product. So understand you may not be in that place right now. It's somewhere that you've got to grow to, and we could certainly help you get there. Provide anywhere, anytime access to them. Dynamically serve your customers with content, interaction, and dialogue. In other words, don't just get out there, but constantly communicate with them, whether you're doing that through email, whether you're doing that because they can come in and check on what's going on the back end, or they can do their own self-reporting or governing. But you want to be able to then come back after it's all over and provide them with a report or some kind of other kind of information that delivers added value. This is how we perform better than our competitors did. And then ask them what they're looking for. Gain their feedback for new and improved offerings, because they're sitting there saying in their minds, I wish I could do this, I wish I could do that. Sometimes you just got to ask them, and they'll tell you what you need to do to be able to do more with them. So in terms of all of this, it means that your web marketing is going to be taken to a new level. It's expanding beyond traditional websites and attracting customers via banner ads and reciprocal links. And you're moving towards sophisticated buyers, new customers, by improving access to all information at any time. 4 elements are driving that. This is kind of a summary of what we've been talking about through the whole presentation. The market, shifting demographics to align with mainstream customers. That's not just a question of different people who are buying. It's a question of different people who are living, different people who are out there interacting with customers, and the impact that those people have on other people. Timing, continuing expansion, conversion of web-based systems. You've got to begin to move in that direction. This does nothing to remove the value of print. You want the web to be as valuable, if not more so, than the print. And maybe you might need to think of them as 2 separate things, but whatever is the case, you've got to begin to move to web-based systems the same as the rest of the world. When we do our banking, the majority of us are not going into branches anymore. We're picking up our phone and we're doing it online. Which goes to the next one, behavior, increasing the shift to continue online ordering, training, fulfillment. This is going on. And to be able to benefit from digital, you've also got to be a part of that new way of thinking, new way of behavior. All of that leads to value. The cost of establishing a global reach continues to decline with reduced service and product costs. In other words, people are no longer just thinking about what I can do next on the block, what I can do around the corner. They're thinking about how they can expand around their city and nationally and even internationally. So that's continuous evaluation on your part. User behavior, what are they doing? Tracking what they're doing. Occasionally put together surveys and send those out. You know, those surveys can also be monetized. You might want to look at developing a customer advisory panel. Here are some people that you trust who've been long-term customers who you can feel comfortable with, talking about what kinds of things do you need to do to improve and expand your business. And this conversation is not just limited to one side of the business, but the whole thing, but especially from a digital perspective. And then media measurement. As I said earlier, being able to deliver against the plan versus actual impressions, plan versus actual CPMs being cost per thousand, percentage of click-throughs, cost visit, cost acquired customer. Some of these things, those lower three of the last bling of bullets, we don't necessarily push with clients, but our competitors do. And so it's something that we have to reach for. So you're going to face SEO challenges because the majority of services offered are not offered exclusively. SEO means people who are finding you online. Competitors and others are using the same keywords to describe similar service offerings. You've got to be able to differentiate yourself. And innovations that differentiate publishers must be implemented and focused on. Meta tags, content. Now, all of these things may sound technical, but the web is technical, right? But what you're trying to do is differentiate your site from everyone else's. You want people to come to your site for a reason, and you want them to understand what that reason is, and you want it to be the same reason that you have in your mind. And that reason needs to go beyond high quality news. It may even be a personality or a group of personalities. It may be an offering. It may even be, how Stacy now is doing the 7:30 broadcast every day. But that's part of the reason for that broadcast, for us to be able to further differentiate ourselves from other people who are providing news that they see as news directed at African Americans. So here we're just talking a little bit about SEO. You want developing an SEO program. Now you may see this as something that's not as important, and I might not disagree that there are other things that are more important to do immediately, but certainly an effective SEO program, SEO stands for search engine optimization, right, will benefit you as a publisher because it makes all of your other efforts and investments more efficient. You're able to then leverage all these other platforms and tools that are out there on the web. An example here, Sovereign Bank finds that new account applications increase with a higher SEO investment. Search marketing accounts for 59% of the overall interactive pie in terms of their investments. Search engine optimization is the process of configuring a website so that it ranks within the first 3 to 5 search engine results pages. Beyond that, people don't go. They might go 3 pages and then they give up. So if the number of sites increases by 1.5 million each month, providing some context for the challenges that you're facing is important here. So the website elements that affect optimization include entry and exit pages, page titles, site content, graphics, and your website structure. And this will be something else that I'm happy to discuss with you in greater detail if you want to give me a call or drop me an email. So form follows function. To ensure that our sites are competitive within search results, our websites must include elements of search engines used to confirm relevance. There's no guarantees you can do a lot of this, but as I said earlier, you're not doing it in a vacuum. And the odds are good that just achieving purely organically driven SEO results can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months because you're fighting an uphill battle. And it would require targeting the right elements of your publisher's web property. In other words, you might want to look at specific kinds of things. I've noticed that some publishers have begun doing food sections or automotive sections. It's a reason that we are trying to put a lot of car content out there for you to be able to leverage some of that car content and be able to differentiate yourself that way. SEO requires an ongoing investment in time, as do all of these things. You're really getting into this for the long haul, not for the short haul. So here are some success factors and measurement for you. Success factors increase in visits to your site, These are things you can measure. How many times the same visitor is coming back, not just the rate in terms of how often, but the frequency, how quickly between visits, and the number of return visits, the engagement, how much time do they spend on the page, and how many pages do they visit. What we find in our metrics for Black Press USA is they are reading the entire article. And as I said earlier, they're visiting more than 3 pages every time they come. If you have downloads and other kinds of things, in other words, these are things that are interactive. What are they clicking on? You give them something to do when they're there. Registrations were available. Click the email links if you have any, or any other kinds of things that are like that on your site. And cross-pollination of content consumption just means you put something out there in an email blast, you put something out there on social media, you put something out there in one channel or another, and you see people interacting across all these different channels. And visits to experts and insights, this is really just about content that you may decide to put on your site. An advice column. I know a lot of publishers run columnists that are commentators. Well, commentators are experts providing unique insights. And if you find that a specific commentator that you're running content from is getting a lot of visits or a lot of interactions, you may want to try and speak with them about doing something else. Maybe you can do a live stream with them. Maybe you could ask them to come on to your social media channel. Maybe you can interact in a different way on their social media channel. So there is a lot to kind of dig in here. I can appreciate that, some of this will need some follow-up. And as I said, I'm happy to do so. You can feel free to email me at normanrich@nnpa.org or give me a call at 757-292-7513. And we will make this actual PowerPoint available for you as well. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you for listening.